you, Jimmy. And before I start, I just want to say a big thank you to Wendy. Let me tell you, she does such a great job for us, being a California past board member. And as a reminder that the majority of the seats on the Board of Examiners are state board seats. And actually, in the position, the chair position should rotate between a state board person and a non-state board person. But I was just sitting there thinking that before I joined NASBA, I was the chair, and then another, Doug Warren from Tennessee was the chair, and now Wendy, so I know it's going to be switching over now. But we've had a great run, and so many great volunteers that work for the AICPA, but represent the state board perspective. Looking around the room now, I don't know if Mike Tham's here or not, but Mike from Louisiana is currently on the BOE. Russ Friedewald from here in the great state of Illinois serves as an executive director liaison to the BOE. Mark Crocker is on the state board committee. Bobby Creech over here is also on the state board committee. David De Silva from New York here in the front is on the state board committee. And then I look around and I see Rick Isserman, who has been involved with the exam in the past for many years, and who else? It seems like Walter Davenport was on the board. So I look around the room, and there's been so many people that have been active with the CPA examination, and we all know how important it is, as it's one of the main tools that we use to determine the competency of a candidate to become a CPA. So I just appreciate everybody's volunteer time and efforts that they give us. And I also want to recognize a few of the staff. Many of you know Mike Decker, but Mike, would you stand up for a moment? Mike is with AICPA, and he's one of the senior folks that oversees the CPA exam for AICPA and does a lot of terrific work. Kim Ferrace, is Kim here? Kim's over on this side, they bookended us here. Kim is with Prometric and oversees the CPA exam for Prometric, so all the testing centers. And they too are just a wonderful partner. So I appreciate that. And I would recognize Pat Hartman, but I think Pat had to duck out a little early. But Pat just does a rock solid job for all of us at NASBA as it relates to the examination too. So a few things to discuss. You're going to see a few things in red here, and these are recent changes. But I also know, having gone to the new board member orientation a few days ago, that there are a lot of new board members here. So I want to hit on a few of the basics related to the examination and some of the background. Give you a little bit of information about where we're heading, where we might be going next, a few statistics. Many of you, or some of you, were lucky enough to attend the session that James Saw and Ted Long did about international candidates and the statistics that a lot of data and statistics. So I'm not going to do a deep dive into statistics today, but there is a PowerPoint in your book if you want to look at some of that information if you weren't able to attend their session. And lastly, I have an ask today. I'm going to ask for your help with something. So a little background. We started the international testing overseas almost a year ago. And I know Wendy mentioned that. We're also up on a big anniversary for the computerized exam. It's hard to believe, but next spring we'll be at 10 years. Those of you that have been around a while, just the thought that we have been testing 10 years on the computer is just amazing to me. We did switch the international examination is given at the same schedule now that it is domestically, so you can take it, the first 2 months of every window. That changed as of January 2013. Earlier, you could only take it 1 month out of every window. And just a reminder that U.S. citizens can take the examination anywhere, and when we test in other countries, only certain other people can test. Citizens of that country, some of the surrounding countries, and people who have lived in that country are kind of like a naturalized citizen who have lived there a while. Here's where we're testing. We started in Japan, the Middle East, and I'm not going to go through all the countries there, but you can see a few of them. And we also test in Brazil. Here's hot off the press, As of next Monday, July 1st, we've really opened up testing to all of South America. So they have to take the examination in Brazil, but we've opened up to all of the countries of South America. Now, I found this fascinating as I was getting ready and going through these countries. There's one called Surinam. Who's heard of Surinam? Few people? Okay, well, more here than on the West, I'll tell you. I knew nothing about it, but just a little trivia. It's a Dutch background country, so they speak the Dutch language. It's in northeast South America, and it's about 560,000 people, so it's a very small country. And I think I said it right because I actually Googled it and listened. You know how you can put on the thing to listen how to say something? So hopefully I got that right. Okay, what do we think about when we're considering where we're going to give this examination? You know, how did we decide to go to the Middle East and to Japan and to Brazil? What we look at are multiple things. One, and importantly, is candidate volume. You know, are there enough candidates that are actually coming to the United States to take the examination now? Or is there a population of CPA wannabes, you know, that we know are interested in taking the examination? We look at legal and political obstacles. There are actually some countries where they are not, the accounting profession in that country is not enamored with the idea of us giving the US CPA examination there, and so there are some political issues in some countries that we have to deal with. Also, obviously, safety. There are some countries in the Middle East where we won't test because of the safety to the candidates and the people at the testing centers. And we also look at security. We need to make sure that the questions, you know, the intellectual property, this valuable database of questions that AICPA has derived, we have to protect that. And in some countries, unfortunately, the protection, the security of keeping those questions safe and not out there, people cheating in essence, we have to be very careful. So those are all things that we look at. We do consider if Prometric is in that country. Prometric has a worldwide operation. They're one of the biggest test providers in the world, so they do a great job in being where we want them to be, but we kind of laugh sometimes. We think there might be a rogue group of a CPA tribe in, you know, upper Kazakhstan or something, but they're there where we need them to be. Where we're looking at next, Saudi Arabia. We're looking at expanding to Saudi Arabia, and interestingly, we are looking very closely at Germany as an entree to the EU. So candidates from the European Union would be able to come into Germany. And we're looking closely at that. We're dealing with some privacy concerns and some other things, but that is an area that we're looking at. And lastly, IQEX countries. We have mutual recognition agreements with certain countries around the world. And say Canada as an example. Canadian chartered accountants, now many of them are CPAs of a different ilk, want to become a US CPA, so they take one part of the CPA exam, which is what we now call IQEX, to become a US CPA. So we're considering some of the countries where we have MRAs, because it's natural that candidates from those countries might want to take the examination. Here's a few statistics for you. As of May, we've had 4,800 unique candidates, and we've administered 16,000 sections, so that's parts of the examination to those candidates. And over 1,000 of those candidates have already passed all 4 parts. This I thought was interesting. It's a little bit of a graph here. The interesting thing that I think that I wanted to point out is China. That is our most rapidly increasing candidate pool outside of the United States. The numbers are increasing. Now, Chinese candidates cannot take the examination in Japan. Many of them go to Guam, our test center in Guam, to take the examination, or they're taking it within the United States. But I think it's something to watch. Just a quick shout out to our own Tom Kenny and his counterpart with AICPA, Ophir Bussell. They're leading the charge on getting the word out about the examination, and that's twofold. That's making sure that candidates in these countries know that they can take the exam internationally, but also they need to know what that means, that they do, once they've passed the fourth part, that they are signing up for a deal that says that they will get licensed within a certain number of years. So we are reaching out, we're providing a lot of educational information. I talk here about other things that we're doing. We reach out to the universities and to the review course providers in these countries. We've had some innovative things, like in the Middle East, we've done some webcasts with candidates. So our folks have done a great job with that. I actually went to Japan last fall, and this is, if anybody wants to read that to me, have at it. Thankfully, we have somebody who can translate it into English for us. But it was a very interesting trip. I'd never done a press conference before, so this was my first press conference, and it was one that was translated. So the questions were translated for me and translated back, which made it interesting. But I spoke to candidates, visited a prometric test center, and we got a lot of good press out of that. So here's my ask, and I'll close with that. One thing that we have promised to do with the internationalization of the examination is to track these candidates. Once they've passed all four parts, they've agreed to get licensed. So we want to have a database, a place to track them, and it has to be publicly accessible. So somebody can go on and say, this person, they didn't get licensed in the 3 years that they said they would get licensed in. So we have that database going. But what we really want to do is to make it part of the ALD and CPA Verify. So someone could go on in China and put in somebody's name and see that they truly are licensed in a state. So to do that, though, we need we have specific identifiers for each candidate, so they have a specific candidate ID number. And all licensees in the ALD have a specific ID number, but right now we don't have a way to match them. So what we need is for the states to be open to the concept of working with NASBA's ALD committee and our staff to find a way to join those two, or to have them talk to each other so we can track candidates all the way through to licensure. So that's something that you'll be hearing about more in the future, and I appreciate if you'll give that some consideration. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.